Welcome to the channel. So today we're pulling the high pressure power steering line off of Old Green, our 2004 F-150 with the 5.4 liter 3-valve V8. So this is a pretty complicated issue. So what we're doing is we're replacing the high pressure line. So one of the challenges is with doing this is the fact that the high pressure line is really buried behind the pump and behind the pulley. Thank you, Ford, for doing that. Only on a Ford would you see this. But so it's kind of difficult to get to all the fittings. How do you get to the rack and pinion side fitting? I had to take off the left side front tire, and down in here you can see right up in there there's the bolt that you have to take off to get to the pressure line right there. So you take that off. I just use a 10 mil wrench just like so up in here, and it wasn't too hard. It just, you couldn't turn it that much at a time. It'd be better if you had a gear wrench, but poor old me, don't got a lot of resources right now. We are in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, but I was able to get that off with just a 12-point Craftsman open-end wrench or closed-end wrench. Now, one thing I noticed is this pressure line, or this return line right here, it's a lower pressure line, is really corroded and it's really rotted. It looked like it might even be wet from maybe transmission fluids leaking out of it. I don't know. But what I also found is that one is incredibly difficult to remove, and I really don't know if I want to necessarily order another one of those right now. But that line's not that hard to replace. If it wants to pop out of there easily, I'll probably go ahead and replace it. Here's a look at the pressure line here. This was up and around the front, but I pulled it around the frame to come out of the front here so it could drain down into this pan. But you can see the pressure line. There's the plate that held it in, and also holds the lower pressure one in there. So if this lower pressure one will slide out of there easily, I would like to at least maybe inspect it and see how it looks. But it looks like, as of right now, it's pretty much stuck in there. So it's not a whole lot I can do. It's hard to tell the condition of the line, so it's probably okay for all I know. I might just try to run it again and see what happens if it's leaking or anything. I didn't notice anything leaking from there before, so it could just be wet for whatever reason. It's not really under the same amount of pressure like the high pressure side. So I kind of popped the cap here to see if that would help this drain out a little better. You kind of get a flush for free a little bit, just because all the fluid's going to be drained out, so that's going to be good for the system. It's probably better to go ahead and plug everything, but I'm not worried about all that. So all the power steering fluid is pretty much draining out of the system from that line that's open. One thing I did have to do coming under here to make things a bit easier is to remove the oil filter. So by taking off the oil filter, as you can see there, it lets you see the next challenge, which is the high pressure hose that is connected to the power steering pump. Now, this high pressure hose is going to be really difficult to get it loose because you don't have a whole lot of access. It'd be nice if there was enough room in the high pressure, in the pulley, to get the high pressure line loose, but it doesn't look like there is. I think the best thing to do would be to have the pulley puller so that I can just pull that pulley off and I can get the hose installed. One trick would be to cut that line right about there, right there. To cut that line there and put an 18 mil socket on it, so that way I could get that off. But then how will I get the new one on? So it kind of defeats the purpose. So instead of me going and buying that cutoff tool, which I don't have, I can just go buy the pulley puller and see if that will be enough for me to get that off. Now, here's a look at what I'm trying to get loose. Here's a new Motorcraft high pressure power steering hose. So if I make a cut right here on the old one, cut that off, then I can put an 18 mil socket. But honestly, looking up in there, even if I had the cutoff wheel, it'd be real difficult to get in there. There's a coolant hose that would have to come off, which I don't really feel like taking off the coolant hose and having to deal with coolant and all that if I don't have to. So if I can just go ahead and get a open end wrench on there. It's gonna be tight. I'm soaking it right now with oil, WD-40. If I had a better penetrating oil, I would, but hopefully WD-40 is good enough. I'm soaking this down with WD-40 because it's pretty dry. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get I'm thinking I'm gonna get the pulley puller for it. So that way, let's see, why is this light not on? I gotta, hold on one second, I'll get this light turned on. So like I was saying, if I get the pulley puller there, I can go ahead and get a 18-inch or 18 mil, I said 18 inch, geez, 18 millimeter open end wrench. A line wrench would be better, but open end would be okay. It's 18 mils. It's pretty big. You know, I might have some luck with an 18 mil open end just because it is 18 mils. So if it's in decent enough condition, I should be able to get it off. And hopefully that'll work, especially too since I'm soaking it. I'm gonna try to see if that'll get on there with the pulley on, but I highly doubt it will, looking at how tight that is. So it looks like a pulley puller so that I can get back at that because I don't want to be trying to, even if I cut this line, if I cut that power steering line, you can barely see it, it's rusty. If I cut that line and get it loose, great, but when I tighten that up, if it's not positioned just right, the pump has to be on the vehicle. It has to be in position to get that put on right. Even if I took the pump off of the vehicle and got it loose from the vehicle, got the high pressure off, which would work, in order to secure the new one, it has to be put in place because that's going to be in any position. Once I tighten this up, this is going to be in any position. So it has to be on the vehicle in the right spot in order for me to tighten it up correctly. So the next step that I'm going to do is go ahead and get a pulley puller, pull that off, and get some grease, press it back on, and hopefully that does it. I mean, that's really all I can think of to really make this work smoother. I mean, I could try a crow's foot, but I think honestly it's going to be so tight, it's going to be really difficult to use a crow's foot. So comment below, tell me what you think about this. Hopefully this gets done soon. This is quite a lot of work, and this stuff is not easy. So anyway, comment below. Hope to hear from you soon, and have a great day. Struggles of the 5.43 valve.